2010. Albuquerque, New Mexico. Back then, Jack still woke up not to screams in his head, but to the smell of coffee. He and Emily lived in an old, small house on the outskirts of Albuquerque. The paint on the walls had long faded, the doors creaked, and in winter cold air slipped through the windows. But it was their home. A tiny kitchen, one bedroom, an old couch in the living room, and a little balcony where they dreamed of someday turning it into a nursery. Jack worked as a mechanic at a local garage. He came home tired and covered in grease, but almost always with some small gift, a chocolate bar, an apple, sometimes a flower. Emily had worked as a cashier before going on maternity leave. She knew how to make the house warm even when money was tight. Their evenings were simple. He washed his hands. She put the kettle on. They ate at a small table, talked about their day, laughed at little things. When the power went out, they sat by candlelight and made plans. If it's a boy, we'll name him Luke. And if it's a girl, Sophia. Sophia, that's beautiful. They fought. From exhaustion. From money worries. Over little things. But they never went to bed without making up. When Emily told Jack she was pregnant, he sat silently for a long time, holding the pregnancy test on the edge of the bathtub. Then he just pulled her close. We'll get through this. I promise. The pregnancy was hard. Emily often cried, was scared, angry for no reason. Jack learned to cook, do laundry, and listen quietly. He went with her to ultrasounds. He was the first to hear the heartbeat. When Sophia was born, Jack was afraid to hold her. She seemed too tiny. But when he finally did, he cried. For real. He carried her through the night so Emily could sleep. Whispered, I'll protect you, no matter what. On weekends they walked together. Old park, cheap stroller, coffee in plastic cups. They made plans. About a house. About the future. About another child.
And just when Jack truly felt he had something to lose, war came into their lives. In the spring of 2010, the orders came. Deployment. Afghanistan. In Afghanistan, Jack quickly realized this wasn't a war like the movies. It was raw survival. The sun burned like a furnace, scorching his skin and searing his lungs with every breath. Dust choked the air, sticking to sweat-slicked skin, filling every crevice of his uniform. The constant roar of distant explosions was a deadly heartbeat that never stopped. Each day was a battle, not just with the enemy, but with exhaustion, thirst, and fear gnawing at his soul. He saw men fall, some screaming, some silent, some never moving again. The stench of burning flesh and sweat lingered long after the firefights ended. Sleep became a memory. Every shadow hid danger. Every sound could mean death. Then, in an instant, it all came crashing down. An ambush. The explosion tore through the convoy like thunder. Metal screamed and twisted. Glass shattered. The world flipped upside down. Jack's body slammed into the ground. Darkness swallowed him. When he woke, his wrists were raw from the ropes, a heavy sack covered his head, and the taste of blood coated his mouth. His captors took him into a nightmare that had no end. The cell was a hole dug into the earth, the floor rough and damp. Chains bit into his ankles. The nights were freezing cold. The days blistering hot. There was no light, only the echoes of pain. Torture wasn't constant, but when it came, it was brutal and unpredictable. They beat him with fists and pipes, drenched him in icy water until his teeth chattered uncontrollably, sent electric shocks crawling through his body like wildfire. Starvation gnawed at his insides. Dehydration burned his throat raw. Sometimes, they left him in silence, alone with the screams of other prisoners piercing through the walls. Their cries of agony burned into Jack's mind. Time lost meaning. Days melted into nights. His weight dropped, his skin stretched tight over bones. He was slipping away, losing his grip on reality, on himself. What kept him going was the faint memory of home. The smell of Emily's shampoo. The sound of Sophia's laughter. Their faces glowing in his mind like a distant lighthouse. He whispered their names in the dark, clinging to them like a lifeline. There was a moment when the pain, the despair, the endless darkness crushed him. He wanted to give up. But then, through the haze of suffering, Sophia's face appeared, pure, innocent. And something inside him snapped. He refused to die, not while there was still a chance to come back. He was freed during a military operation. He didn't walk out, they carried him. Hospital. Screams at night. Seizures. Fear of touch. Medication. Empty stare. The doctor said, "Physically, you survived. Psychologically, the war will stay with you for a long time." 2 years later, Jack returned home. Sophia was already walking, saying words. Shy around the man called her dad. Emily was waiting with flowers. But a different man came home. He woke up screaming. Got angry for no reason. Yelled at small things. Pounded his fist on the table. Then sat, staring at the floor. He was afraid of himself. Emily tried to hug him, he flinched. "Don't touch me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." Jack's brother, Andrew, started coming around more often. Too confidently. Too frailly. One evening, they were all sitting at the table. Silence. The clinking of spoons. Tension. Suddenly Sophia said, "I know a secret." Everyone looked at her. "Her dad sleeps with my mom, when my dad was away." A spoon fell from Jack's hand. Emily turned pale. "Say it again," he said quietly. "She said that her dad sleeps with your wife." Silence. "Is it true?" He looked at his brother. Emily started crying. "How long?" 8 months. Jack slowly sat down. "So, while I was being tortured, you were with my brother." He stood up. "There, in captivity, I thought it couldn't get worse. But the worst was waiting for me at home." He went over to his daughter and kissed her forehead. "You are not to blame for anything." He grabbed his jacket and left. There was a divorce. Medication. Therapy. Lonely nights. He still sometimes wakes up screaming. But every week he picks up Sophia. Once she touched his scars. "Daddy, did it hurt?" He looked at her. "Yes, it did. But the worst pain isn't physical. The worst pain is when the ones you survived for betray you." He survived. And now, he's learning to live. Having survived the hell of war and his own emotional wounds, Jack felt broken, but not defeated. Eventually, he made a hard decision. He could no longer remain in the past, in the pain that dragged him down. He devoted himself to a cause that mattered, one that could help others. Jack began working in the field of supplying weapons to the American Army. This job not only gave him the chance to support soldiers currently on the front lines but became his personal mission to help protect those who, like him once, risked their lives for others. In this new path, he found discipline, a sense of control, and purpose. Day by day, through this work, he rebuilt himself and regained faith in his own strength. The war took much from him, his home, family, peace. But not his spirit. And not his will to live on. He lived for Sophia, lived to be better, and lived to help others. This story is not about defeat. It is about survival, about pain, and about the strength to rise again even when it feels like the world has fallen apart.